Hey guys, hey ladies, hey friends, hey foes. We just wanted to take a second to remind you that while we're okay swearing when little ears are listening, you might not be, and that's okay. So here's your chance to pause us and wait for nap time, or pop in your earbuds. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Me in the straight jacket. 'Cause I'm a criminal. I need some medication. I'm hearing voices. I'm making bad choices.
Welcome back to another episode of Done Playing by the Rules. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Jenelle. I'm out of the closet if you're watching on YouTube.
Can you please explain? Because I don't think you always mention you're in the closet.
Every episode I think that we've ever recorded has been in one of my multiple closets because it has the best acoustics. So hopefully the echo isn't going to be too bad from this, but I can edit it out. But I'm in the office because my husband is gone and my kids wanted to play in the basement and I can't be more than a floor away from them or I feel anxious. So like being in the closet with them in the basement, I can't hear if someone's like killing the other one. So
yeah.
I'm in the office like Jen.
So you would be anxious because my kids are in the woods right now.
Yeah, well, no, because I know where, like, your woods are safe. Our basement is like open water heater, and they've also been getting in a lot of like physical altercations. And Mikey's go-to move is the neck hold, and so I'm just always convinced somebody's going to choke someone out, and I'm going to need to resuscitate.
Just like run in there. Speaking of being safe,
that
didn't even work. Like
that
I don't
was
know
an
how
accident.
That did work. I mean, I said that didn't work. We're actually talking about family safety plans today, and this can be completely different, I think, for families based on your needs. Like if your kids are in a situation where someone else is taking care of your kids, you kind of need a different plan versus Jenelle and I stay home with our kids.
When we grew up, my dad had a disgruntled employee that he fired once, and we went into like full high alert family safety plan because he had made threats against, I think, the family, but I know my dad. And it was like, we had a family safe word. If anybody tries to pick you up that isn't these three people, you don't get picked up by them. And I practice this with my kids all the time. If we're going to like a big neighborhood party and I'm not going to be watching them as closely as I should, I'll say like, okay, hey little kid, we're going to practice right now. So I'll say to Mikey, hey little kid, come get in my car. I have some candy I want you to try. And we practice like, nope, you yell no. And if someone tries to grab you, you scream and you kick and you hit and you swear. And we practice all of those. And we practice it on the way to every party. Okay, what do you do if somebody tries to go in a room with you alone? What do you do? And it's an unfortunate thing that we have to do. The world is really big right now, and social media is really big, and everyone knows where everyone lives, and it's just my kids play in the cul-de-sac unattended, and
and we'll touch on all of those. But there's also natural disasters. So
yes, that's
even if
thing.
Like you think, okay, my kids are safe, like natural disasters can happen. So this conversation kind of came about with the Colorado fires. I knew someone who was greatly impacted. I also had a friend from high school who lost a child in a fire. And my husband actually is a survivor of a house fire where he lost one of his best friends in the house. So, and he lost everything he owned, like car,
and here's
melted,
what we don't think
everything.
about. We don't realize how fast fires are. And that's something that brought this up to me and Jenna. I have a safety ladder in each of my kids' rooms. They're like $50 on Amazon, but they've never come out of the box. We've never practiced. We move every year. So we don't ever like set down enough roots to build a plan because we keep switching houses. So like, I don't know if there's what room, all the rooms probably have screens on it, but like, I don't have any plan if there's a fire. I haven't said to my kids one time, like if there's a fire to get out of the house. Like we've had tornado safety plans and hurricane, when we've had hurricane issues and like power outage, like we have a stockpile of things, but we don't have a like get out of the house in 30 seconds timed practiced plan.
Yeah. So we do. And I think growing up, I had one. Actually, I know I had one. And then it got a lot more intense around 9/11 time because then we also had a terrorist attack plan. My dad was really big into that. And we always had safe words, fire safety, and all of that. So I guess maybe it was instilled in me. And then my husband obviously is very cautious of fire. Like he's the kind of person that like you light a match, you put it in a cup of cold water, not in the trash can. So I think maybe start with fire safety plan because that's to me something that's really important because it's impacted 3 people that I know and has taken 2 lives.
I just always assume fire's slow. And so I'm really interested in this part. I assume like, oh, there's a small fire and then you have 10 minutes to gather your belongings and get out of the house. And I was shocked when I was reading about the Colorado fire that those people had seconds to get out of their houses and left their pets behind. Like, that is never something, like I have goosebumps thinking about it. That is never something that crossed my mind that fires move that fast.
Well, and you don't know where it's originating a lot of times. You don't know where it's the strongest. So in our house, we have an upstairs, which is just kids' room and a playroom. And then downstairs is our master. So we are mostly downstairs, but our kids sleep upstairs and it's on the other side of the house. So if you can kind of picture that, like our bedroom's it's not like you leave our bedroom, go straight upstairs. In our last house, we were all upstairs. And so we have a little different plan for each one. So when we had a house where we were all on the same floor, since it was upstairs, we had a ladder in our room and then the kids' rooms that we would use. So we didn't have our son practice because he was 3 and our daughter was a newborn. So obviously they can't use the ladders by themselves. And then we had the ladder in our room and we just like talked to our son about like, if you can come out, come to our room kind of thing. So now that we're on different floors, it's a little different situation, I think. If you have a 1-story house, which I grew up in, the thing was we always had our screens off our windows and it's not a fall hazard unless you have like a super small kid. And so we were just always told, lift your window and run out to the neighbor's mailbox, which is an important part, which I'll get to in a minute.
I forgot about the mailbox. Yes.
And so with our kids, we do not have screens on their one window in their room, which I know can also be a danger. But my kids are old enough and I trust them.
If they're going to fall, the screen is not going to stop our meaty kids.
I don't know. Like, I guess it's like if
I know
the
it's
kid's
like
going to open the window and hang out. You know, that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, my kid has opened the window and thrown stuff out, but
I mean, if you're going to hang stuff out, mine are going to fall through it. If they're going to fall at it, they're going to go through the screen either way. Because it's going to be WrestleMania related, not leaning out to hand you something.
Yeah. And we have chimes. So like we can hear if they open the window. And you can even just buy like little chimes. You don't have to do your whole house.
I did it when I was in college. You can get like 2 for $8 on Amazon.
Yeah. And so with the ladders, which Janelle is going to listen up on this one. So each room has a ladder and they are kid accessible. So they're not high up in a closet. They're actually both on the floor and they're up like on their side because it has like a little handle so they can, because it is heavy. So they can grab the handle and drag it out. And we have taken the ladder out. It's actually kind of confusing how to get it out and which way to face it. So we drew little arrows.
Good to know because I've never opened the boxes.
Because you have to open it and then you have to like open the ladder itself. And then one part faces out and the other part hooks into your window. And then once it's out, they open the strap and it drops down. It's kind of confusing. So you do have to practice quite a bit.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So we took a permanent marker and we drew arrows pointing out. So our son knows which part goes in because if not, then it's not on there secure and then they fall. We did that for both. My daughter is not going to be able to use it, but I'll get to that in a minute. So our son has 2 plans. So first, if the fire alarm goes off, which there are all different types of fire alarms now. And I was the kid that would sleep through fire alarms. They make these ones that you can record your voice. We don't have those. We just have a random voice and it's like fire, fire, something like that. I don't know. We just tested them the other day. You would think I would know what it said. Because statistics show that a voice is actually more likely to wake a child up or a sound asleep adult rather than just a beeping.
This is interesting. I'm learning so much.
Yeah. So ours beeps.
I'm like taking notes on our own podcast. Ooh, like I can't listen back.
So ours beeps and then it shouts fire over and over. Obviously test those every year. We test ours on our anniversary. That's our fun anniversary date.
So romantic.
Usually a kid cries because it's not fun for them to go off. So he goes to his doorknob when he hears that, touches it. Everyone knows this. If it's hot or you see smoke under the door, stay in the room. If the doorknob is not hot, he opens his door and he looks. If it looks like there is no fire, he cannot see fire, he runs to his sister's room. Then he gets out her ladder, climbs down. We have a really tall house. I cannot trust my 3-year-old to climb down a ladder, nor can I ask my son to make sure she gets down safely.
No.
So he sets up the ladder, he climbs down, he runs to the neighbor's house and says, Peyton is in her room, come with me. And he takes them to the ladder so they can climb up and get her.
So smart.
They are in on this plan. That's an important thing too. When we developed this.
Yes.
And so we told them, actually we had Ezra tell them so that he could go over it. And then you can worry about parents. We just tell them we've got ourselves. And this is like a situation like, say there was a fire on the stairs, like we couldn't get to our kids. I mean, obviously if we can get up there, we're going up there. That's his first plan. If his knob is hot, he sees smoke or he sees fire, he closes his door, he stays in his room, and he gets his ladder out, climbs down, runs to the neighbor's house, says, my sister is inside, bring a ladder, and shows where her room is. And he knows the difference, like bring a ladder versus my sister's here. So then you have to think, where would the fire engines most likely be coming in? Because that's another safety hazard. Your kid is going to be hyped up. They're going to be scared, especially if their parents aren't out there yet or if their sister's not out there. And then you pick a safe spot that is on the opposite end from where the fire engine would be coming. So for instance, we live on a cul-de-sac. You come in on the left. So our neighbor on the right is their safe spot. So they go to that mailbox and they have hands on it, and that's their safe spot so that they're not in the way of the fire crew. There's no risk of them being in the street for fire engines or anything like that. And that's where we all meet. And they just know like that's their safe spot. And like I said, the important thing is to let your neighbors know that they're a part of your plan. And we have a backup. If for some reason they don't answer, then they go to the other neighbor. And then of course, the common sense, teach your child to dial 911. But they don't have phones at this age. So it's not always accessible. But teaching your kids to dial 911.
It took me longer to teach my kids 911 than it did to teach them my phone number. Because for some reason, 991 sounds way better to them. Literally took them longer to figure out 911 than to figure out my 10-digit phone
number. Is it 199?
Oh, it's just so easy to invert for them for some reason. Yep. And that's another point I wanted to make was the meeting place being very important, because there's been untold number of stories of someone going back in for someone that's already outside because they don't have a meeting place. Yes, that was a huge thing when I was growing up. That's what the mailbox was for us, was to make sure Dad didn't go back in for one of us that was already out and just in the woods.
Gosh.
Or a fireman doesn't have to risk his life going in for someone that's already outside. And so the meeting place is huge on multiple levels.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that. And if your kid is struggling with 911, if you have a cell phone, you can tape the number on the back or have like a little place that they can go, because that's also important, especially if you're a single parent or there's one parent alone a lot with kids, or a caretaker alone with kids, where it's not a situation where there's multiple adults. Because I've always told Ezra, if something happens, like say I pass out, say I fall down the stairs, like he knows how to unlock my phone and dial 911. Yeah. Because that's a whole other situation too. And then he goes and unlocks the door.
I'm alone for a week at a time, and some days I don't talk to Josh for 24 hours. Like I could faint and no one would know for a day. And so we practiced, who do you call? Who do you go to? They know if they can't figure out 911 to FaceTime Jenna and to FaceTime my husband. Yeah. One time there was a fire at our apartment across the street and I went to go help, and they FaceTime Jenna because they were so scared.
I was like, oh, I loved it.
There was no danger. I just wanted to make sure like everyone had gotten out, because it was like a mom and a baby, and it was like flames blowing out of the window, and they were outside, and so I just wanted to make sure everybody was out. And my kids FaceTime Jenna because they know that's the rule. Or there was a car accident, I pulled up on a flipped over car, and they FaceTime my husband because I was out talking to the police and they got scared. So if they can't figure out 911, kids are really good at FaceTime. So tell them they're two people to FaceTime, or mark them with stars who they should FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly. And like you can put little pictures next to like your contacts so they can do it. I have little symbols like stars and hearts next to mine so my kids know. Like Peyton can't read, but she knows like Daddy's has like this symbol, Uncle Matt's has this symbol. And there's all different types of plans, and I'm sure there's a ton of resources out there. And you can get as detailed as like, this is our pet plan, like how to get our pets out of the house. There's also a lot of fire departments that will give out stickers that you can put in your window, and it's like so many pets live here, and so you can put like how many and what they are and stuff like that. That's our fire safety plan, and like I said,
have you explained to the kids now? So you explained to the kids not to worry about you. Have you explained to the kids, because this was a big one of my parents, not to worry about the pets? My parents were very adamant, don't worry about the pets. And I always was like, I'm going to worry about the pets. And they were like, you can't worry about the pets.
We had to with a tornado that we had in our last house because there wasn't room. We had like a German Shepherd and a French Bulldog.
Sorry.
Ezra wasn't thrilled, but I mean, Peyton was a newborn. So
yeah.
You have to do what you have to do, you know.
So, I know you do. And that's like having the plan. I said that there was you're a German Shepherd. I'll top you with my dad. I told this story to Jenna before when there was a tornado at my house in Minnesota. My dad was there recovering from his motorcycle accident. He couldn't get down the stairs fast enough. And I was like, I love you. And grabbed Zach and just ran to the basement. And then my dad finally stumbled down. Like once I had Zach in the basement safe, I like went to help my dad finish getting down the stairs. But like if it was happening right then, you had a good life, homie. Like,
yep. And so also talking about like, I guess, natural disaster type things, tornadoes is another one. And this is just like one of our small things. So we have a tornado closet and we only store pillows and blankets in there. This could be coming from Texas. I don't know if people do that here. And everyone knows like internal of your house, not upstairs, main level, no windows, all of that. Yep. Ours is actually like under our stairs and it has been in both houses. It's nice because it's like, I mean, for guests, it happens to be in the guest room and I just store pillows and blankets in there. It's ready to go. I don't have to pull things out, which was in our last house. We didn't have an empty closet. So I had to pull things out, which was tricky, especially with 2 freaking out kids. So we don't have to move anything out. Everything's just on the side. If anything falls on us, it will not hurt us. And then we have a small emergency kit in there with like a flashlight, some food, water, a heated blanket, just little things like that. And if you're interested, we have one and we just happen to keep it in that closet. It's called a Judy kit. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of this, yeah.
And they're like these orange kits. We have the backpack one, which is like a essential kit for a family of 4 up to 72 hours.
Yep.
And they have everything from that is the small kit. They're not cheap. To a large tote. This was something that my husband was really passionate about and he got, and we've added a few other little things in there that we've had before. It's a nice to have. I don't think it's a must have. You can even make your own. Just make sure you have like some non-perishables and some water, stuff like that.
Another thing I will add for safety kit is what I've read a lot is, and this is something people might not understand that aren't in Virginia, because in the Midwest, most of us have basements. I had never lived somewhere without a basement until I moved to Virginia, and we had to do the closet hideout. It made me so anxious, and my kids had helmets on, and like it was ridiculous. But putting shoes for everyone, a pair of flip-flops for everyone, or shoes in your tornado safety kit, because one of the most frequent injuries post-tornado is people walking around barefoot, because you run into a basement barefoot and all the glass is broken and you're walking around. We have a little safety kit that we just made and it's got what you said. But it also has like a weather radio in it. It has a tiny first aid kit in it. It has
make sure you put batteries, because we had a weather radio in our last one. Yeah, the batteries were dead, so it was pointless. But
batteries, chargers, yes. Because before, like we were down there for like 3 hours recently. A
phone charger, because if you have power, your phone will most likely die.
My phone was dying, and I was trying to watch the weather report on my phone because not everybody has cable TV. Like we don't have cable or TV in our basement. Oh, and regarding natural disasters, when COVID first started and food was getting really weird and scarce for a little bit, we actually went to Cabela's and bought one of those big kits of like freeze-dried food.
Yeah.
Which it's just, I mean, it lasts for like 50 years.
Right.
So it's just kind of one of those nice things to have on hand. And we've seen different food shortages throughout this pandemic, but it's a nice thing to have on hand for natural disasters, like you said. And so if things got really weird and we were stuck in the basement for a number of days, we would be okay as a family of 4. And that kit wasn't super expensive. So if you're not in the budget to get the Judy kit, which I know is expensive, and we have a tote bin too that's full of like all the first aid, all the like stuff we would need, even like baby wipes in case somebody has to poop while we're on the run.
Just a side note, when you do start going over this with your kids, don't be surprised if either they show no interest or they become obsessed. My son, every time we move and we implement a new plan, he's kind of becomes obsessed. He made my grandmother, which is his great grandmother, like hide in the closet, pretend like there was a tornado. And it was just
Oh.
because it was like new to him.
Yeah.
And it's almost
Yeah.
like playing out his fears makes him a little more secure. So
Mhm.
don't be
Mhm.
surprised at that.
Or don't be surprised if they act disinterested and then 6 months later are like, am I
Yes.
going to die in a tornado? Because that's how my
Right.
kids are. They like to process it internally and agonize over it for 6 months and then be
Yeah.
like, is this how I die?
Yeah. And we try to not like harp on it. We don't make it scary. Like if they're not listening, we're not like, listen up, this could, like really
You're
hurt you.
blowing
Or
like whistles at them and
Yeah,
timing
right?
them with a stopwatch.
We kind of
Get
make
down
it
the
like,
ladder.
yeah, we make it fun, but we tell them like this is serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need you to focus. And so then with other like accident type injury stuff for our cars, we have like a little car safety kit. Next to my driver's door, I always have one of those like things that can break windows, cut seat
Yep.
belts, flashlight, personal safety. I also have some personal safety measures in my car, which I don't feel safe discussing because
It's
discussing.
an Uzi.
Well, it's just I don't want people to know where they are, kind of thing.
Yes.
But
speaking of where things are, here's my other thing. This is from my dad. Your window breaker, put it in the drop down sunglasses thing, because if your car
Ooh.
rolls over,
it's gone.
it's not going to stay in
That's true.
your little side thing. That was my dad's thing. He's like, it's much more likely that you'll be able to reach it if you're upside down if it's in your sunglasses thing.
Like the thing that pops?
Yeah, the thing that pops the window out.
No, the like sunglass.
Yeah, you put it. Yeah, the sunglass thing, because that'll stay. Most likely will stay closed. Otherwise, if your car rolls, your window popper is not going to be where you set it.
And if you don't have one, I guess your middle console, or tape it down or something.
True. Yeah, middle console probably be fine, or tape it to something. That's a good point too. I never really thought about that.
That's a good point. I'll need to move mine.
Or
and
I
then,
mean,
of course,
mine has a keychain attachment, but like I don't like shit on my keychain, and it's got the seatbelt like slicer on it too. But like I don't need that on my keys, so I keep it.
Well, and my keys are never with me because I have like the keyless.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like, or one of our cars uses our phone to turn it on. Like I don't have keys with me. I'm fucking fancy.
And then I have like a little kit in the back, which I've actually had to use. So of course, like you have like your jumper cables, your first aid kit. The normal stuff, your flashers. I have like a little, I can't remember what it's called, like the thing that fills up your tire if you ever get a flat. I've had a dead car battery multiple times when I'm alone with the kids. So make sure you have jumper cables. And then with that, we keep like bottled water granola bars because we've been stranded. I mean, I've had to use them.
Well, and that happened.
Keep them up to date.
That happened in Virginia. What, like a week ago? That whole road got shut down with the ice storm, and people were in their cars for like 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like we always have granola bars, water bottles, blankets. I've never not had a blanket since I've had kids because I grew up in Minnesota, and that was just what you planned on. And I've gone in the ditch and been in the ditch overnight before, driving home from college. All the AAA trucks can't get down the road, and clearly you can tell from my accent that I went to school on the border of Canada, basically. So having a real safety kit in your car is different than just like the first aid Target one you buy too.
I have rope in my car because if you ever get stuck and you need pulled out, which happened to my mom before. Yeah. I can't think of what else. I know there's like little things. And like I said, you can Google them and just kind of think about what you need. And then also with that, if you have kids in car seats, this is a big one, and I'm like adamant about it. I made my own, and I tried to look for them before I got on here, and I couldn't find them. They must have been on my old computer, but I basically made a little piece of paper. I laminated it in case it gets wet, and then what is the clear like packing tape to the side of car seats. And as your kids change car seats, make sure it goes with the car seat. And I also have them in my in-laws' cars because they have car seats. And I put on there like, this is my grandparents' car at the top. And then on the sheet, I have their name, allergies, their date of birth. Don't put I guess you can. I'm not telling you what to do. I'd suggest you don't put their age because that's going to change every year and you're going to have to change it. Emergency numbers. And I always list 2. I put my husband first, and then and in his car, I'm first. And then I put my in-laws because if he's ever with me or vice versa, can't call each other. And then their blood type if you know it. I mean, if you've crashed and say you don't have your license or your license fell and they don't know who you are and they don't know who your kid is, and chances are if your kid's in a car seat, they're going to be okay. Yeah. And if something is and you're severely injured, they need to know what to do with your kid and who to call.
That's
And
really
so I have
smart.
them
I've
on
never
all
thought
of
of
them.
that.
Yeah. And to make sure it's on the side where they would open the door to get your kid. Because I've
Okay.
also made that mistake. Like my kid was rear facing, and so I had it towards the door. And then when I flipped him around, I forgot to take it off and put it on the other side. And they're not going to like, oh, let me go look around this car and see if they have
Let
a
me
tag.
investigate
Like,
this car.
yeah.
Yep.
And it's huge on a black, it's white, huge piece of paper on a black car seat. So it stands out. So it's like,
That's really smart.
and I did it in red, bright letters so that it's like, you cannot miss that this is
Ooh,
Ezra
this
Wilson.
is super
Yeah.
smart.
Okay, and now we'll get into like the other stuff that we don't love talking about. I mean, none of that I like talking about. Oh, I have one more. Just kidding. I won't share much about it, but we have an alarm system. And I think it's really important if you have an alarm system to talk to your kids about what to do if it goes off. True. I won't be sharing my plan, but just think about it. If there is a burglary or an invasion, home invasion, think about what you would want your kids to do and talk about it with them. And I don't suggest sharing that one because you don't want people to know that.
Yeah.
But your kids need to know. Like, I mean, for instance, I can share this. Like, I don't want my kids screaming and yelling. If for some reason there's a stranger in the house, I mean, that could scare them off, but I don't want it to attract them.
I've said that if somebody ever comes in our house, it's for money. It's not to hurt you, even if we all know from watching murder shows that might not be true. Yes. But I always tell, like, kids don't need to know. Kids don't need to know that. So if they're coming in, they're coming for money. Let's keep calm, and we'll give them what they need, and everything will be fine. Yeah. Zach knows how to operate our alarm system. He knows what all the buttons mean. I make him turn it off every morning so that he's like familiar with typing the code, and like he's not afraid of it. And make them a part of the alarm. Because I mean, like
ours has gone off plenty of times, like on accident or whatever. But so they know what it sounds like. Make it go off so they know what it sounds like. Because it's louder than I think most people would think.
Yes.
Okay, now for real, the ones we don't want to talk about. They just make me uncomfortable because, I mean, all of them are hard to think about, but I think these are especially hard to think about because it's more like ill will, I guess.
I'd rather think about it now than think about it after the fact while I'm thinking of what I could have done differently.
Yeah. Well, and so my parents did these, and I always want to ask them why. And I don't know if it's because there were a lot of child abductions in the 90s. Well, I think
child
80s?
Abduction was like the brand new thing happening that we knew about in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. Like it was like, oh my God, the world is going to shit. And it's just like, oh no, we just know about it now because of like the media and the news.
Because I can remember when the Amber Alert became a thing. And that was close to home for us. Yeah. It was like a town over or a few towns over. And so it was like, I think maybe that's why they did it, but I don't know. Because I can remember them doing it from a young age. So one of the things which Jenelle kind of touched on is we have a safe word / phrase. My kids know it. I'm obviously not going to share it.
Tell the world.
Right. And it's not one that we use in our everyday language, but it's not one that would sound weird, as well as it's not one my kids could forget. And it's a word that would stick out. Like if I said it to Brandon, he would be like, what? And he would know. So if we're talking on the phone, either to each other, my husband and I, or the kids, and we don't want to be somewhere or do something, but we feel uncomfortable saying so or we can't. For example, I was younger and we had a code word, and it was, which I can share now because my parents are gone.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember ours now.
I had a guinea pig, and his name was Patch, and I would say, "Did you feed Patch?" And it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for me to ask because this animal is in my room. So say I called my mom. So for instance, one night I called my mom because my friend wanted me to spend the night and I didn't want to spend the night. I didn't feel very comfortable at her house. It's one of those situations where she's like, do you want to spend the night? As an 8-year-old, I'm like,
right next to you.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know if my mom will let me. And she's like, call your mom. And then you're sitting there. And we don't have text message.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And so I call my mom and she's like, I'm like, Mom, can I spend the night at her house? And she's like, sure. And I was like, oh, but real quick, did you feed Patch? And she was like, oh my gosh, I forgot you have a dance recital like first thing in the morning. I'm sorry, you can't. And then I, of course, acted disappointed. And I'm like, oh man, like,
Mom, you're the worst.
Yeah. And I used it a handful of times. Even if I asked like to spend the night or to go with somebody, I just didn't want to. And then it can be even more like with your partner, a safe word. So if I even text the word or the phrase, like he knows to play along, not to be like, what are you talking about? Like, like role play it and play out the scenario as awful as it is. so that they know to send help or get you out of the situation. And my kids know to say it. The other reason we use is to signal something is wrong, even if it's in person. But we'll just use my childhood one, for example.
Yeah.
So if we're at home and say my husband comes home and someone is in the house.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't tell your husband, that kind of situation like you see on TV. I could say like, oh, by the way, did you get food for Patch, like the guinea pig? And so if I use that, or if I call him and I'm like, on your way, pick up food for Patch, he knows something is going on.
Okay.
And that can be in person as well. And then the third reason we use it, which especially for young kids, is if there's an emergency and someone has to pick my kids up, they have to use the word or they don't go with them. Yeah. Now, I know this could be tricky. Like we could be in a bad accident, but then it's either that and my kids have to stay at this other place for longer until like a grandparent can get them, or not. But I'm not willing to risk like, oh, just go with so-and-so. Like, you never know. And we used that once growing up. Like I don't remember what happened. And this was before the days of cell phones. Yeah. And so my mom had sent someone to pick me up from school. And I was like, and she said the word. And I was like, okay. And nothing ended up being wrong. We just didn't have cell phones to communicate. Like, I think my mom was like running late or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you have to even think about the situation. Like sometimes it can be somebody you know and trust is coming to get your kid without your permission. And so you tell your kid, like, if they don't know the word and I didn't call the school, like.
And so, like this guy that was in my dad's work situation was like a part of our family for 15 years. Like you can have a falling out with someone that goes off the rails and then they know you're like, you might have to change your safe word. If like you knew my safe word and then like I went crazy or vice versa, like you have to change. So make sure you're keeping up with it too.
Yes. Yeah. And you need to have a plan with your kids. Like, hey, if you accidentally ever tell someone this, like you have to tell us. We will not be mad. And then you just change the word. If you have had to use the word, chances are you might have to change it depending on who knows it. And then just talk to your kids about how this is like a family secret to keep us safe and refresh it in their minds, especially if they're little. And then speaking of strangers, which I know you mentioned, and you say like you role play, which I think is great about like
every time
come get
we
my
go
car
anywhere,
which is really good. And we always just tell our kids like err on the side of caution. If you don't know them, you don't talk to them, you don't get in their car, you run away and you just scream over help no, or help, and scream and run as loud as you can. If you hurt their feelings, so be it. I'll deal with it later.
And that's a big one we talk about with our kids is an adult will never ask a kid for help. So if an adult comes up to you and says, I need help finding my puppy, can you help me this? Can you help me that? You say, I'm a little kid, find an adult. I'm a little kid, find an adult. No offense, you're not going to help them. Yeah, I can help them. Adults help other adults. Kids don't help adults. So if an adult ever asks you for help, no.
And if you have teenagers too, I think it's really important that it's okay to say no. I know that we're in a huge movement about being kind and spreading kindness, and we see all these kind things on the internet. But if anything in your gut is telling you to say no, like it's okay to say no. It's okay to not be the hero. I remember one time I was at a concert in downtown Dallas, and this guy came up to it, and it was me, another female, and two males actually. Okay. And he was like, help, our car ran out of gas. Can you come help me? I have my kids and my family in the car and they're right up the hill. And I just kept thinking like something doesn't feel right. And then we went up the hill and it was like a group of 4 guys at a car. And so it's okay to say no, or it's okay to be like, no. And then if you still feel like you need to help, call 911 if you think it's an emergency, or go tell a business owner nearby, like so-and-so needs help. Like, especially if you're a teenager, like it can be dangerous and scary. And it doesn't matter male or female. It doesn't matter group or individual. Like,
and the pushier someone is, the more that you should err on the side of caution, because like if you think about it, I was listening to a podcast recently and it was like, no should be a complete sentence. You shouldn't have to offer any explanation. But if you say no, that makes me uncomfortable. And they're like, well, why does it like, come on, you're being too.
Come on, yes. Oh,
come on. You're being dramatic. You're being overly worried. Like they use these like trigger words, especially for women. I've had people ask me to let them use my phone before. And No,
or
there's
just
a
roll
phone
down
in the
your window. I
grocery
just want to
store.
talk to you.
No,
Like,
sorry.
I'm sorry. And it doesn't matter, daytime, anything. Like, I mean, I've had people approach me in the daytime that were clearly unsafe situations. Just roll down your window. Come on, I just want to talk to you just for a minute, just for a minute. Please, please, please. Like, jiggle your door handle, anything, and just drive off. And then I only have 2 more, and they're easy ones, quick ones. Both our kids are fingerprinted because you never know. Hopefully that'll serve them in the right way. Although if they get into trouble, their fingerprints are on the.
They're on their own.
Yep, their fingerprints are in the system. So
just tell them that, like, FYI, your fingerprints are in the system, so you stay out of trouble.
Well, they did ask, like, why? Because we recently got my daughters. We have like a little bit of my daughter's DNA that we have in the freezer. I don't know. The hospital offered it to us. I was like, okay, I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know.
I got to get in your freezer. The shit you talk about in this podcast that's in your freezer. It's like Ted Bundy.
Yep. And then the last is, which I know a lot of people don't. We have wills, and they're not just like, hey, will you take my kids if something happens to us? Like, they're legit wills. I think I was paranoid when I went into labor with Ezra because I was like, what if something happens to me and he survives? And then losing both of my parents. So we have a will, and you can get as detailed as you want, as basic as you want. You can spend thousands, you can spend 100, whatever.
You can write that shit and have somebody notarize it. Like, have something.
Yes. And of course, we've talked to the people who would raise our kids. We want them raised in certain ways, and they know it, and it's emotional. Expect to cry the whole time. But
it is,
and people's feelings will get hurt, so don't feel like you have to tell everyone. Like, we've gotten comments like, oh, well, we thought we would be. Yeah. And you have to think about age as well as family lifestyle. Like, there's some people I love, but I don't want my kids raised that way. So
and you can't, and you're right. You don't have to tell anyone.
No.
That's a big thing I hear a lot. It's like, well, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. It's like, they don't need to know.
And if they do know, you're guardian. Dead. So they just have
tell
to deal
them they're
with
the fucking guardian, and then you're dead, and they can be mad at you at your funeral.
Yep. And if you tell them, like, oh yeah, you can be the guardian, and then you die, they don't have any power if it's not written down. So and there's online services, in person, whatever you want to do. So we hope that helps you and keeps you guys safe. And if any of this has happened to you and you've had to put these in place, I'm sorry. And I don't even have words. And if anyone has tips, we're here to listen. I'm always here to improve ours. I think it's very important. So with that, do your family plan and call your therapist.
And take your meds.